Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to session number 3 of the Marketing Mastermind course. I'm so excited to have you here. And today is going to be an awesome session because we are talking all about prospecting and sales. So I'm always running into business owners and having lots of conversations about how they can find more qualified leads, and then of course how they can actually sell and increase or improve their sales process. So we have a really amazing expert guest, and I'm so excited that she is participating today, and I'll introduce you to her in just a couple minutes. But before we get into the meat of everything, of course, I need to ask everyone about their action items and making sure that you're actually executing on those next steps and those action items that you're creating for yourself every week. So just type in the little chat box and let me know if you actually executed on those action items. That's a big part of this course, is that accountability piece and making sure that every week you're coming up with those next steps that you need to take in order to move your business forward. And I know that we've been talking a lot about how do you create those action items so that they're very specific and measurable, so you feel very accomplished at the end of the week and you can really start to see some momentum happening in your business. So over the next 8 weeks, you're going to reach that goal that you've set for yourself. Also, we've been talking about those productivity tips, so things that are helping you stay a little bit more focused and productive. And I'm not necessarily posting a lot of different tools and resources on the Facebook page, and I'm doing that purposely because there's just so many tools and productivity hacks that we can be using every day, but I don't want to overwhelm anyone. So when you have a specific challenge, or if you are working towards a specific goal and you're having any issues during the week kind of staying focused, or you need to streamline something or make it easier, reach out to me and let me know, because I might know of some great tools to help you. But again, not everything is going to work for everyone in where they are in their business. So just let me know, and I can try to find different tools, online tools that could be really beneficial for you. It's another reason to stay active in that Facebook group and let us know what you have going on. So today we're talking all about prospecting and sales. And to do that, of course, I wanted to bring on a special guest speaker. And this is somebody that I've known for many years. And I've actually done some events with her and spoke with her. When I used to work at the Boca Chamber, we had put together a program and help people with their networking and then prospecting and sales. And it's Greta Scholes with Scholes Business. She is the best-selling author of To Sell Is Not to Sell, and she has over 30 years of experience in sales and sales management. And she's just amazing, because every time she speaks, it's people walk away and they have these actionable items that they know that they can start implementing in their business to help them with the sales process. And it was so interesting to me because we did the same presentation every month to these local entrepreneurs. And not only did she get rave reviews, but people came back every month. I mean, people would come back month after month, the same people, to hear the same presentation, because there's just so much that she shares that's really amazing and good. And her content is awesome, and she'll share some ways that you can stay connected with her later on during this call. So she has some really fun stuff to share today, and so definitely get out your pen and paper and get excited to learn lots about how to improve your sales cycle and of course prospecting. So I'm going to turn it over to her in just a second, but we're going to start with prospecting and then move into sales. And before we go through all of these new ideas of places that you can find your new target market or dream clients or qualified leads and prospects, we just want to talk a little bit about what you have going on right now that's working. Because I feel like oftentimes in our business and in marketing especially, we're always looking for, okay, how can I generate more. I need to find new things and new ideas and bring in new leads and new business. But there's probably things that you have going on right now that's actually working for you. You may not be doing them consistently, but take a step back and look in your business when it comes to finding prospects and decide, first of all, what's working. So I have a couple of you that said that you're asking for referrals and that works really well and you're getting some leads that way every month. Or networking events. Some of you have identified some really great networking events that you're consistently bringing in new leads. Facebook ads. Maybe you found a really great way to market your product or service on Facebook and you're getting leads that way. Or referrals from colleagues and different strategic alliances. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on as well. And then so once you decide what's working, you also want to decide what's not working, because we sometimes continue to do things that aren't necessarily working in our business, but we're just used to doing them. So maybe you're going to networking events all the time, but you're not getting leads. So they might not be the right networking events. So that's really important to identify. Cold calling. I know some of us, still pick up the phone and do that cold calling. Is that working for you or not? Purchasing email lists and just doing random blast emails to people. Or then, of course, social media without a strategy. This one's a big one, and I see it all the time where people are constantly on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and they're not getting any results. So decide what's working, what's not working, and then, of course, that's where you take action. So you do more of those activities that are working. So if asking for clients for referrals is working, hey, make sure that you're consistently doing that on a weekly, monthly basis. Get rid of what's not working. So stop running around going to all these networking events that just aren't getting you results at all. And then, of course, try something new. And that's where we're going to dive in a little bit today and hear some different things that you can be doing to generate the right prospects for your business. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we talked about last week, which is in order to find those new prospects and your dream clients and customers, you need to know who they are, right? You need to know what they do and where they're hanging out. And last week, when we talked about storytelling and creating that customer profile, Sean talked about who is that customer profile. And you have to be very specific and clearly identify who this person is. So much so that they have a face and you know what they do on the weekends and how they spend their money and their time. So on your worksheet, you created your own customer profile. So you added a picture and a very detailed description of who this person was so that you can speak in that person's voice. You knew where they were and you knew more effectively how to market to them. So you should have done that last week on your worksheet. If you haven't, please be sure to do that because it's really important, especially as we move forward today and then during the rest of the sessions. So that's really important. Now I'm going to turn it over to Greta, as the first thing she's going to talk about is one of my favorite things that she talks about and something that I talk to most of my clients about when we're trying to figure out who those people are that they really want to connect with. So I'm going to unmute Greta so we can hear her. Greta, are you there?
Hi, guys. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, all good.
Okay. Just want you all to know this is a picture of me. Aren't I pretty?
So pretty. And you look so smart.
I do, don't I? Yeah. Smart and pretty. That's me. Oh, okay. So we want to talk a little bit about the top 10 list. Kate, tell me a little bit about what you have explained to everybody, or maybe none. I don't know how far you've gotten into this, so I'm not repeating everything you've said. Have you talked about the top 10 list at all?
No, to some of them individually, but not to everyone. So go ahead and just explain the whole thing.
Okay. So a top 10 list is something that I came up with several years ago. And the reason was networking and building what I call strategic alliances, which I'll go over with you guys today because it's part of prospecting. But the top 10 list is something that I discovered that I really needed. And here's why. When I was meeting with somebody one-on-one as a strategic alliance, when I was sitting down with them and talking to them and trying to learn a little bit about who they were and what they did, one of the things that they would do is they would say to me, well, who's a good referral for you, Greta, or who's a good client for you? And I would go by the top of my head and I'd say, well, a good client is this or a good client is that. But top 10 list is actually arranging a list of people that are they're one of three things. And the reason it's 10, by the way, is it gives you enough kind of meat to put in there, but it's not too much where you're overwhelming people, like giving them your whole prospect list. A top 10 list is a combination of either an actual person who works for an actual corporation that maybe you've tried to get in front of, but you haven't been able to, like, John Jones, the president of ABC Company, right? So you can put that down as one or several in your top 10 list. The second type of thing that you can put on your top 10 list is a type of prospect you're going after. For example, you could say, let's say you call on law firms. You could say a senior partner of a law firm in the state of Florida, in Palm Beach County, in St. Louis, Missouri, wherever it is. So you can give that kind of information where you're giving a title and an industry, a type of person, and if there's a geographic limit, you can put that in there. So that's the second type of thing that you can put on your top 10 list. The third type is actually strategic alliances themselves. And I'm going to talk a little bit more in some detail about what a strategic alliance is. So you can actually put down somebody who might be a good alliance for you. And as we talk further about strategic alliances, you'll kind of recall back to the top 10 list. Oh, okay, that's what she was talking about. So as we talk about what that is, we'll be able to, oh, there she goes. Yeah, so again, who are the clients that you want to get in front of? So you can put that there. Can you go back one, Kate? Yeah. Who are the clients? What companies do you want to work with? Who do you want to meet? Who's a great strategic alliance? So this is kind of what you're looking for, what you want to first ask somebody else and take notes on, and then you want to ask yourself these questions, and that's how you're going to develop your top 10 list. So let's go to the next page and we'll look at the sample there. Okay, so here's just a sample here. So if you look at the first one, CEO, an architectural firm in Palm Beach County. Well, it's a specific title. It's an actual, rather than just a company, it's an actual type of firm, and it gives a geographic area. So that's one way that you can give an example of a type of strategic alliance that would be good for you. Another one, if you look at number 5, Dale Hedrick, president of Hedrick Brothers Construction company based in West Palm Beach. Some of these were actual ones that I pulled from my own list just to make the sample up. I have met him since then and have worked with him since. So that was kind of nice. But in the meantime, that's why I put that down. Now, number 8, a top performing agent in the commercial insurance industry. Well, what does that have to do with me, who owns a sales training and coaching company? Well, if somebody's a top performing agent in commercial insurance, they're selling to small to medium sized insurance companies. And when you sell to a small to medium sized company, you're typically talking to the principal of that particular company that you're calling on as an insurance agent. So those are people that I want to be talking to, even though they don't have anything to do with me. So those are just examples. And what you do with this top 10 list is after you ask a bunch of questions to the person that you're sitting with, and we'll go through that in a minute. It's probably a little bit backwards here, but as we go through what a strategic alliance is, then you ask them all about them and who they're looking for and who they want to meet and who you can introduce them to. Then when it gets to your turn, you can pull this right out, show it to them, go through it one by one and explain it, and then hand them a copy of it. First of all, they'll love it. They always go, "Oh my gosh, what a good idea! This is so pointed and it's so exact. I love this idea. How do you do it?" I mean, people really do like it because you kind of think, "Oh, I couldn't hand that to anybody," but it really is a good thing to do. The other thing too is as you go through some of these, like let's say you say to somebody, CEO of an architectural firm, they'll go, "Wait a minute, I know an architectural firm. They're not in Palm Beach County, but they're in such and such a county." Oh, that would be okay. You have conversations during this. So it gives you kind of a basis to start a conversation up about what's a good referral for you. So that's really what the top 10 list is. Okay, so prospecting with a strategy. So let's first talk about networking. Okay, yeah. Okay, first, you have to find the right networking groups. And that's very important for you guys to understand, because often when I hear people talk about networking, they say, well, I'm going to go to all the networking groups in my community, in my industry, okay, well, that's going to take a lot of time. And to me, that it's a waste of time. Now, I do think you should go to a bunch of networking organizations out there, and depending what you do for a living, it could be your local chambers of commerce, could be trade organizations within your industry, could be trade organizations within your client's industry, could be a charity, could be a leads group. So you should go to several different ones to see what really is the right fit for you, what feels right for you. But once you decide which ones you're going to commit to, and a lot of that depends on time. In other words, if you go to one and they meet every week, well, then maybe you can't take on 5 more. Maybe you go to 1 or 2 more. So it really depends on how you break up your time. But decide which groups are right for you. And then you have to be consistent, which means if you're going to join a networking organization, don't join just to have your name in the book. It's irrelevant. Right, Kate? People have their name in the book doesn't really mean anything, right?
Right. That is right.
Yeah. I mean, the people that really are successful in networking are the people that are seen there on a consistent basis. And they're always there. They're always talking to people. They're meeting new people. Those are the people that others feel comfortable with because they see you there on a regular basis, as opposed to just you're here and then 3 months later you show up again and then another month you show up again. So you have to be somewhat consistent. So what you want to do when you're going to a networking function, the first thing you want to do is you want to set a goal. So I'm just going to give you an example for me of what a goal might be. So we just talked about the number of events. So set a goal would also be how many potential strategic alliances do I want to find at a particular event. So depending on the number of people that you want to connect with or the people that you do connect with, my goal is always the same. I always want to meet at least 2 potential strategic alliances. So I meet as many people as I can to try to find 2 people that I think I really could connect with that would be good strategic alliances for me. That's what my goal is and what I'm trying to achieve. So how do I do that? How I do it, well, one of the things you can do is you can identify your strategic alliances before you go. In other words, if you have the ability to get a list of who's going to be there, you may want to look and see people that you want to target. And I don't mean people that you're trying to sell to. I mean people that may sell a type of product or service that you do, that is a complement to you and maybe a good alliance for you. So I'll talk about those in a couple of minutes, what's a good alliance. So you may want to identify that first. But here's what you look for to build a strategic alliance. Okay? The first type of strategic alliance that you want to look for at a networking event is a potential complementary product or service. Okay? So what that means is, let's say you sell marketing services. Well, a complementary product to you might be somebody that sells advertising, or somebody that sells web design, or something like that. That's a complementary product or service. So one of the people that you want to keep your eye out for, especially if you're going to look ahead of time before you go, is people that are complement to yours. In other words, when they buy or invest in your product or service, they're often doing that with this other person. So that's somebody you want to talk to. And by the way, just because they have a complement product or service doesn't mean they're going to be a good alliance. It means that's step 1. Right? So that's a possibility, but you want to still get to know them and see if you connect with them and see if you would be, feeling comfortable referring them and they would feel that with you. So that's just the first step. The second one you want to look for is a colleague with the same prospects. And sometimes this overlaps, but I used to have a strategic alliance with somebody who sold office equipment. Now, what does office equipment have to do with sales training and sales coaching? Nothing. But that person, she was savvy enough to when she talked to small to medium-sized businesses or entrepreneurs, she would get right to the owner. She had good conversations with them. She had a really good way of opening up what their issues were, and she was a real partner in the business. So when she talked to those particular types of clients, that is an opportunity of somebody that talks to the same types of clients. So it's similar to what I gave you before on the top 10 list, which was the insurance agent, right? He talks to the same people I do, but insurance doesn't have anything to do with me, okay? So the third type of strategic alliance is just a great connector, somebody who is, for lack of a better term, a mover and shaker in your community. And that doesn't necessarily, I hate that term, but we know what that means. They don't necessarily do anything in particular, but they're very connected. They like to connect people together. Everybody knows them, likes them, and trusts them. And if you got a call from that person and they said, hey, Kate, it's Greta, I met a guy named Steve, he's a really nice guy, he does this, that, and the other, and I'd really like for you to talk to him, you would take that phone call because you have a lot of respect for that person. So that's just a great connector. And the other thing about being that great connector, people want to be around those people because they will help them, and when they help them, you're gonna want to help them back. So my recommendation to you is you want to try to be a great connector. You want to be the person that connects others together. And then when they say to you, oh, I really appreciate that, who would you like to meet? Then you can explain to them in detail who you want to be introduced to. That's often how that happens. Okay, Kate? Yeah. Okay. So you found somebody who's going to be a great potential strategic alliance. So you want to set a meeting, and one of the things I think is important for you is to set a meeting, but set a coffee. When we first started doing this, we would set lunches. And let me tell you, it gets exhausting. It gets, because it takes so much time. By the time you drive there and sit down and get served and all that stuff and drive back to your office, you're talking sometimes it's 2-3 hours. That's a lot of time. So that's number one. The other thing about that is you want to set coffee because honestly, if you're doing a couple of these a week, which I think is a very good plan, you're going to go broke if you're paying for lunches 2-3 days a week at restaurants. So coffee is a great way to do it, Starbucks, whatever. Okay. So when you sit down with somebody, let them know, remind them that you're not here to sell them. You want to learn about what they do and how they do it. So if you do have an opportunity to refer them, then you want that opportunity, but you want to get to know them better so you can refer them with some confidence. So here's a sample of some of the questions to ask. What is it? You told me that you do this. Tell me a little bit more about that. What separates you guys from the competition? Where do you find your customers? Who's your best client now and why? Now, the reason I have in here, tell me a story of something you've done for a client over the expectation. The reason I had that in there is when you're going to give a referral, it's so much easier for you to say, I met this girl. She works for, I don't know, Aflac. And she explained to me what Aflac really is, and here's what she said she did for a company. And you tell a story. It's easier for someone to remember a story that you tell them of something that you did over and above, and it's easier for them to remember a story and to explain that to somebody else to give a good referral for you. So that's a really good way of asking them for a story so you can give that to somebody else, and what they see is a good referral for them. And these are the same things you want to tell them when it becomes your turn. So that's what this strategic alliance meeting is about. You also want to talk to them, and I know I called it a bad referral, and I hate that, I hate to call it a bad referral, but sometimes when, let's give you a real estate, for example. Let's say somebody is they're doing real estate, and somebody says, I've got a referral for you. I have a neighbor who's looking to rent their home. Maybe they don't do rentals. Right? Or maybe they only do real estate in a particular county, and this is outside the county. Or maybe they do commercial, and this is residential, or vice versa. So it's not necessarily a bad referral, but it's important to let people know, these are often the referrals I get, and those really aren't the best fit for me. So you can do that if that's something that commonly happens to you. So, okay. So what can you do to get in front of these clients on a regular basis? Okay, so so after your networking event, you can email somebody a thank you or a nice to meet you, that kind of thing. If you could send a handwritten note congratulating them on a recent accomplishment, which I think is really great. I think even if you just meet somebody, to send them a handwritten note and just say, hey, it was really nice to meet you. I can't believe we have this in common, or whatever you spoke about. I like that idea too, because nobody does handwriting anymore. And try to get an introduction from one of those people to somebody that they may know. But in my opinion, you always want to try to help them first. Okay, is there anybody that you'd like to meet that I can help you with first? And then you can say, well, here's somebody I'm trying to meet. Do you know them? Or here's the type of person. So again, it goes back to the basis of that top 10 list back there. In social media, of course, this is much more Kate's area than mine, but my experience with social media is the same thing. If you can connect people together, put interesting things out there, I wouldn't make it salesy, just make it interesting and light, and trying to connect people together. That's why I like LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn is kind of like a networking group on online. And you can utilize LinkedIn that way. So I really like LinkedIn. I think that's a really good idea.
And then we added this just to kind of bring it back to when we talked about during the first week, we talked all about your action items and daily and weekly activities. So those things that Greta just mentioned, like those emails and handwriting notes, and after you've met someone, the stuff that you're doing to connect with those people, those should be part of your weekly activity goals, those action items that you're putting in place. And we talked a little bit about this little graph because this is something that I actually used that helped me stay on track with my sales goals, because I knew that I had to make a certain number of calls every week, give a certain number of sales presentations, contacting my dream clients, whether that's a phone call, an email, a handwritten note, or whatever, or getting together for coffee, and or even that follow up. And Greta does not like the word follow up, which I will have to switch out and change, because we're going to talk what she calls it, a clear next step, which actually makes more sense, because follow up is, an effective follow up is not just, hey, what's up? How's it going? So we're going to talk a lot more about that a little bit later on. So making sure that you actually have a plan set in place so that you do the stuff that you need to do in order to get in front of those dream clients every month or every week and month. And then when it comes to social media, what's great now is that online and offline, we can combine the two to make your networking a lot stronger. So some people, they just go out and they go to all these networking events and they meet all these people, and then they really don't do a good job following up, or they don't utilize what they can online. And then other people, they hide behind their computers and they just think that they can do their business fully online and without getting out and actually meeting people. So this is a nice little blend. So after you go to some of these networking events and you start connecting with people, like Greta said, LinkedIn is phenomenal. It's great for business, for B2B companies. It's an opportunity for you to build connections on a regular basis. So not only can you reach out to these people on LinkedIn after you've met them online, but you can start to build connections with people regularly. So once you've identified those dream clients and those strategic alliances, you can actually search for their titles and try to find some of those people that you can connect with online before you even meet them in person, which is really great and really easy to do these days. You can really find anybody online. Also joining groups and providing value. So just like Greta talked about, being a connector and providing value when you're talking and meeting with these people, you can do that online as well. I have a friend of mine who he has an online marketing company, and oh my gosh, he is in so many different groups. He's always searching to see that, because people are always asking a lot of questions in stuff that he is an expert at, which is more the affiliate marketing side. And he generates a lot of leads that way because he answers people's questions in these groups. And then they, of course, reply back to him, or they send him a message on LinkedIn asking him to connect and continuing to ask further about the question that he answered, which he's able to kind of showcase his expertise. And he's actually gotten business that way, which is really nice to be able to kind of convert things that way for your prospects. And then also decide what makes sense for you. So which social media sites make sense for you to connect with. If you meet somebody at a networking event and they flat out tell you, I hate Twitter and I'm never on it, well, you're not going to go find them on Twitter, obviously. So decide where those people are, where your prospects are. But Twitter, I just watched a video of someone saying that Twitter for them is the number one place that they find employees that way. They find really good employees that way, that people that are following them on Twitter and they obviously know and like the company and end up being a really good fit, which I thought was really interesting as like a recruiting tool. A way to kind of go on Twitter and see what people are talking about within your industry is just go to twitter.com/search and then search for whatever it is that your industry is. And you'll see tons of different conversations, whether it's small business or public speaking or, people are always talking or fashion. I mean, whatever it is your industry, if you start doing some searches on Twitter, it's unbelievable. There's conversations all day long. I have my friend who owns this other company. He was telling me that he was working with a florist, and the florist actually started searching different phrases and terms on flowers and best flower places, and he found some complaints from a company I won't even say, but he ended up jumping into the conversation and saying, hey, I'm sorry you had a bad experience with XYZ company, but hey, we've got a deal going on. And so he started getting prospects that way for this particular company, which I thought was kind of interesting. Getting a bad review from another company is kind of a perfect way to make good with your company. And then, of course, Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. Facebook groups is really big now. I don't know if any of you are involved with them, but there are some groups that are just rocking, and they have tons and tons of people in the group. And now that Facebook's making it a little bit more challenging to get your content seen, unless you're boosting posts and paying for stuff, groups are a phenomenal way to get seen in front of a lot of people. Now, a lot of these groups, they're there to share and not to sell. But the people that are creating these groups, they're usually pretty good about monitoring stuff. And when it gets too salesy, they call people out on it. So, but this is just a good way to connect with other people within the same industry that have different things going on. So I'm involved in a number of different entrepreneurial groups, some women's groups, and it's just been a great resource for me to meet some different people. In fact, I'm always looking for people to interview, different marketers to interview and have conversations with, or to help with some of the work that I'm working on. And through Twitter, I actually met a couple of marketers who I just adore, and I have some interviews set up with them. So I'm always reaching out to people on these social media sites. So again, some of those people I don't know, but then I also love when I meet someone at a networking event and then I tweet them and you have a conversation with them on Twitter, and that's always fun too. So kind of intermingle and decide how you can take that offline experience and bring it online, and vice versa, meeting somebody on LinkedIn and then potentially going and grabbing a coffee at some point. So it's a nice way to blend the two, and it just strengthens those relationships. Okay, I'm turning it back over to Greta.
Okay, so let's talk about creating value. So if I asked every one of you, what value do you bring? You would probably give me answers like experience, years in the business, company's been open a long time, number one in our industry, we're the fastest, we're the most, least expensive, whatever it is, okay? But now, when I ask the question, what is value, or what is the value that you bring, there is only one answer to that question, and the answer is, it depends. Because it only depends on what the person that you're talking to perceives as value. And that's really important to understand, because everybody says, you don't want to just pitch, you want to talk about value. Okay, but if you're talking about value that you perceive you bring, and the value you think you bring to someone, and you're telling them that, that's the same thing. So value is something that comes from the other person, and it comes from asking questions. Okay, so have you qualified prospects? Now what? So let's talk about, Kate, go to the next one and let's, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about a qualified prospect. First of all, before we get to a qualified prospect, let's remember nobody wants to be sold, but everybody loves to buy. So it's like painful looking at this guy on the screen. He's so awful. But what is really important to remember is that since people don't like to be sold and they like to buy, how do we make that experience better for them and stop selling to them? Well, the way we do that is when we're selling, we're pitching, we're telling, we're talking to. What we need to be doing is doing some research, finding some really good questions to ask. So let's talk a little bit about how we work that. Okay, so what's important when you have when you're selling is to have a sales process. So let's talk about that for a second. When we think about a sales process, what I'm not talking about is scripting, because we all know what scripting is. You've had people call you, at dinner time, and they're calling from a script and they pronounce your name wrong and everything else. That's not what I'm talking about. But having a process for selling is very important. So anything that you do in your organization, when you take on a client, you have a process that you go through. What's interesting is we don't often have a process that we go through to find a client, and we don't have a process to go through when we're trying to get a client. So one of the things I want you to understand in having a sales process, which we're going to talk about, is there are 3 positive outcomes when you have a process in selling. Okay? The first one is a yes. Obviously, that's the most important and the best one that we can get when we talk about an outcome of a sales process. If we get a yes, we get money. Well, of course, that's what we want. But if we don't get that, what's another positive outcome? Well, this one is a clear next step. And actually, Kate talked about this a few minutes ago when we were looking at her tracking form. A clear next step is different than a follow-up, because what happens is if they don't give you a yes, and actually the third one is a no, okay, and a no is a positive thing because you don't waste any more time. But if you don't get a yes and you don't get a no, a clear next step is important because a clear next step has 3 concise things. It has a time when you're going to get back together, whether that's on the phone or in person, it doesn't matter. You have a date of when you're going to get back together, and you have an agenda of what's going to happen when you do, and that's the most important part. What we end up saying to somebody, if we are going to set a next step with them, we end up saying something like, well, why don't I just follow up with you next week? Okay, that's a lot of hours and a lot of time that you could be following up with them. So here's how it sounds. You're going to follow up with them next week. Say, hey, Jane, it's Greta. I'm following back up with you. Wanted to see if you looked the information I sent. Okay, here's the next step. Hey, Jane, Greta again. Wanted to see if you had a chance to review that. Let me know if you need anything else. Hey, Jane, it's Greta again. And this is what keeps happening. And I know in sales we call that follow-up. I call that stalking. We need to stop doing that because nobody enjoys that. And there's no reason you should do it. If you talk to somebody and get a pre-qualification conversation going, in other words, you get a short conversation and it seems to the 2 of you, not just you, for the 2 of you, that it makes sense for you to move to the next step, then you should do that. So the next step is, and this is how I say it, Jane, here's all the things that you told me. And because of that, sounds like it makes sense for us at least to investigate this a little further. What do you think? And she better be saying yes. And if she does, then what you want to say is, why don't we open up our calendar and let's find a date and time that works for both of us where we can put on our calendar, and what we'll do at that time is blank. We'll review this, we'll go over this, we'll talk about this, whatever it is. But set that up clearly. Now, sometimes when you ask somebody that, they say, well, you know what, I'm always in on Mondays, just call me Monday morning. Don't let that happen because you're back to the follow-up thing, and you don't want to be caught up in voicemail and email and all that. So if they say that, just say, you know what, I always blame it on me. I always go, you know what, if I don't put that specifically on my calendar, I'm going to wake up at 2 in the morning and go, oh, I forgot to call Jane. So let's go ahead and open our calendar and find time for it. If they're serious, they'll do that. If they put it off more than twice, then you want to say to them, you know what, Jane, it sounds like maybe you just don't want to move forward with this, and that's okay. Not a problem at all. What we do isn't for everybody. Why don't we just call this a no? And there's your no. Now, why would you do that? First of all, you'd rather get it up front than later. Second of all, when you bring somebody to a no, people don't like to be told no. They don't. And you're doing it in a very nice way, but they don't like it. So when you say that, if they're serious at all, they'll say to you, no, it's not that. It's just easy to catch me. But if you want to put it on the calendar, we can. You've got to get some control of that. If you allow that to continue, you will be chasing and chasing and chasing. You'll spend more time, quote unquote, following up with people and less time actually in conversation. And the more times you leave a voicemail or an email that says, hey, trying to catch up, hey, did you review that yet? Hey, give me a call back. The more time you do that, you're also losing respect for them every time you call them. It's like, she'll keep chasing me until I find time to pick up the phone. Psychologically, that's what you're doing. So it's very important to get a yes, a no, or a clear and concise next step. Okay. So the sales conversation has 5 things. Number 1, most important thing in selling, and this is really your sales process, most important thing is prospecting. And we already talked a little bit about prospecting. We didn't talk about cold calling, but we talked about strategic alliances, we talked about networking, we talked about how to use a top 10 list. That's all part of prospecting, and there's other pieces of prospecting. Today's purpose, those are your best things to set for prospecting. So use Kate's her tracking sheet there. Even if you just write it down with a pencil, it doesn't matter. You can be very antiquated, but you have to prospect on a regular basis and you have to track that. Number 2 is when you actually get an opportunity with somebody. That's your pre-qualification or engagement conversation. Now, why does it say engagement? Because when I used to call it pre-qualification, what that meant was if I said to somebody, well, you've got to pre-qualify them first, they would ask somebody questions on the phone like, when do you want this done? What's your budget with this? Are you the decision maker? Well, all those things are important, but when you hit somebody with those questions, that's not engaging them at all. So you got to start out with what I call ground rules. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you've got to get people engaged in the conversation. And engagement sounds something like this. Jane, thanks so much for taking my call. I wanted to call you today because my friend Kate thought it was a good idea that we talk because you had mentioned to her that you were having a couple issues in this area. But I don't want to assume that
Oh, Greta, can you hear me? Because we can't hear you anymore.
talking about engagement. So it's important to keep that short and sweet, but you have to really make sure that you get that person engaged and get them talking. Because when you get them talking, they're starting to sell themselves. The third is the actual interview or the appointment. So what that means is rather than rushing over to an appointment, what's the way sales used to be? If you can get an opportunity, oh, I'll come by your office or I'll come by and see you. We immediately wanted to go to the appointment, go in their office. Well, to me, that pre-qualification or engagement is the most important because if you get them engaged, then they will invite you in. Hey, does it make sense we get together? And then you do that clear next step. So it's very important that that number 3 is met. Number 2 is met before you go to number 3. Now, what happens in number 3? You review what you did in your engagement step. You ask some additional conversation about money, even if it's, do you have a budget with this, or do you have an idea of an investment here, and don't just put it in your presentation. So you have to have enough information, because they're most likely going to say to you, no, I don't have a budget, I'm not.
Oh, hold on. Okay, hold on. Sorry, everybody. It's kind of. Oh, I think Greta's going to go
Can.
and off. Oh, okay. There you are.
Oh, there I am. So sorry. I don't know what happened.
That's okay. Okay,
Okay.
so D, you're on number 4.
Right. So, well, finishing number 3. So the interview, again, if you're going to get deeper with those questions to really understand it, if you're going to talk about investment, and then the last thing you're going to do is it's what I call if then. You're going to say, so if I can come back with some recommendations that you really like with the that we talked about, and I don't know, you love it. On a scale of 1 to 10, you think it's an 11. What is the process after that, just so I can understand? What you're asking for is their internal decision process. And that's really what you're trying to determine. Number 4 is the detailed recap email. So if you have to go back and do a presentation or a proposal, this is where you set your clear next step, and then you go back to number 4, which is your recap email. So everything you discussed in that meeting, you put down in a recap email. Basically, all the agreements that you made. This was an issue. This is what you said. This is what we agreed upon. This is the money we talked about. And you said we would get together next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. And at that time, we'll address this, 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 and this. If you like it, I'll bring paperwork to get started. And if you don't think it's a fit for you, that's still perfectly okay. If any of the above is incorrect, let me know. If not, then let me know what the issue is. If not, I'll see you next Tuesday. So it's a recap of what you talked about. Then the last step is your actual presentation, proposal, decision. What the last step is really your proof statement. Everybody calls it a proposal or a quote. I call it a recommendation. So what number 5 is your recommendation or decision that you're looking to move forward with. So, you come back, you review all the things that you talked about, and then you say, here's what I recommend to handle the issues that you have. And then you do your presentation, you slow it down, you go piece by piece, and make sure they agree with each piece along the way. So I know that's a fairly quick overview, guys, but those are the pieces you want to have in your sales process. Okay, now I know be genuine sounds like, come on, you don't have to tell us that, we know that. You're right, but if you agree with everything they say, then you don't push back at all, and you don't have any questions for them, then you don't seem genuine. A lot of times somebody will say to me, well, Greta, why should I work with your company? Why should I hire you as opposed to other people? Excuse me. And I would say my honest answer is, I'm not sure yet. I don't know enough about what you're looking for or what I do to see if it's a match. We might not be a good fit for each other. I truly do say that. That's being genuine, because I don't know that yet. So you have to really say what you think. You have to be very respectful, but you got to be genuine. If you have to provide value, then act like a partner. So we talked about what value is. Value is only in the eye of the beholder. So whatever you perceive value is not important as what you uncover that they receive value is. And you have to be a partner, and a partner doesn't do things like, if I can show you a way to, would you buy today? Like, a partner doesn't say that. An actual consultant partner doesn't act that way. And if it doesn't seem like it's going along, then you need to say, you know what, maybe this just isn't a fit for us. Let's take it to a no. Because if there's any hesitation at all about them telling you no, believe me, they don't want to take it away from them. And if they accept a no, then they would have anyway, and you're just pulling off the Band-Aid a little sooner. So those are some of the things that you need to remember.
Awesome. Well, these are all the action items. So Greta, thank you so much. That was a lot of information, and we kind of joked because we were putting together this presentation, and there's just so much when it comes to prospecting and in sales. And Greta and I, we did some videos, so we're actually going to be posting those with some of the information that we shared today. And we're going to actually continue to do some sales and prospecting type videos because there's just so much stuff, and it can be a little bit overwhelming, and we want to make sure that we're giving all this information to everybody in bite-sized pieces. But Greta, you have a really great newsletter that shares lots of tips, and you always do tons of videos and stuff. So how can people sign up for that?
Right. So you can sign up. It's called Gretanomics, which is kind of neat. One of my clients came up with that. But it's a little 1 or 2 minute video on any of the tips that we talked about. So it makes it real short and sweet. It's called Gretanomics. So you can go to gretanomics.com and you can sign up for it right there. You get a free video sent to you called the 8 Top Challenges and what to do about them. And then, and then every week you get a little tip, and they come to your email, and it's just a little video tip every week. So, I hope you guys sign up for that. It's free, but it's fun. I think there's a lot of, neat little tidbits on there. You don't have to spend all day on the computer.
Yes. All right. So if anybody has any questions, please just type them in the chat box, and don't be scared. And also, while you're doing that, I just want to go over for this week. Of course, you have your action items that you need to complete, and that does include filling out that prospecting and sales worksheet. So we have some really fun tools to help kind of keep you on track with some of the stuff that we talked about today. Obviously, creating your top 10 list that Greta went over, we want to make sure that you have that completed. And, just do it, start it. It's not, everyone, I feel like we're all such perfectionists. Like, we want to put things together and just, is this right? Is this wrong? Is it perfect? I mean, this stuff is designed to help you. So in creating the top 10 list, don't make it harder than it has to be. Like, who do you want to meet? And the example that we have in here is a great one, because it really helps you to think about the kind of people that you can be putting on your top 10 list. And then, of course, come up with your 3 to 5 action items to complete by the end of this week. And, of course, share your action items in the Facebook group. And while you're putting together your top 10 list, or if you have any questions or you need some feedback, then definitely share and let us know about that. I encourage all of you to sign up for Greta's newsletter, because she, like I said, she has really great stuff, and be on the lookout for some things that we'll be doing together in the future too, which is fun. So Greta, when you're dealing with all these different businesses and companies, I mean, you go in and you talk to a lot of different entrepreneurs. What are some of their biggest questions for you when you first come to the table, when it comes to sales?
Okay, so there's a couple of things. One is, I think the biggest thing is that people prospect one way. When we think about prospecting, we often think about cold calling, and that's only one of a variety of things when we talk about prospecting. So you should really have a mix of prospecting. It should be, if you cold call, that's fine. That should only be one part of networking, building strategic alliances, putting things on Facebook, asking questions, connecting people together, going back to your past clients, going to your existing clients to ask for referrals. There's a variety of things. So that's one mistake I think people make, is they do one thing. The second part of that challenge is that they make the mistake of doing that for a while, getting some activity going, and then stopping to do the prospecting. And that's a big item. I think if any of you, which I know I don't, God knows, but if any of you were going to the gym, right, you wouldn't go to the gym, walk in and go, well, let me see what equipment's available, and I'm just going to work on that till I get tired, and then when I'm done, I'll just, when I'm finished with as many as I can get on, I'll leave. Well, you wouldn't do that. You'd have a process, and you'd have prospecting activities. And if you met your optimal weight and body mass and all the things you were trying to achieve, you may do a maintain workout then. It may not be as hard, but you'd still do it. You wouldn't stop. Well, prospecting's the same. So one of the biggest problems people have is they prospect like mad until they get a couple of opportunities, and then they don't prospect at all because they're too busy with working on the people that they have. Then they either close those people and they're busy working with them as clients, or they don't get them. Either way, they look back up to their funnel and say, oh my gosh, I don't have anything in it. So those are big issues. The other one is thinking that your personality is going to save you. And because you have a great personality, you can sell. And though being personable and being able to bond with people is very important, having a process for doing it is more important. Because you need to know where you are at all times. You need to know, are you moving forward? Are you not moving forward? So those pieces are very important as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's why it's just so important to have something like you said, whether you're writing it out or you have that spreadsheet, just having those items that you're doing every week just makes you feel so much more at ease and calm, so that you don't kind of feel like, oh my gosh, where am I going to find these new people? Like that's always that's just the worst when you're looking for new business, if you don't have it consistently kind of coming in. And we're going to go through some of the ways to help do that online too, in the next couple weeks. But I'm actually, it's almost 8:30, so I want to end everything on time. But if anybody has any questions regarding sales, please shoot them over and I can send them over to Greta. And like I said, we're going to be doing some different videos and stuff. So if you have questions, we might even be able to just kind of do a fun video to answer that. So Greta, thank you so much again. You are awesome, and it's just so fun that we've known each other for so long, and I always love that we get to continue to do projects together. So thank you for being a part of this course. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Kate. And if there's any questions that any of you have and you're sending them to Kate, certainly send them along to me, and I'll answer whatever anybody has.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, take action, and I'm here for you if you need me, and have an awesome week.